Well, hi, and welcome back. This is our last chapter, chapter 13. And this chapter is on multicultural teams. It's the last chapter, not the least, because we could have had this up front, but multicultural team is the norm now. And so we really have to get our pulse around how to manage them. And now we have a lot of DEI initiatives, diversity, equality, and inclusion efforts that are happening all around. And but it's just important to treat everyone fairly without regards to race, sexual orientation, um, color, whatever, nationality. We must treat everyone with the same dignity and respect. All right. So let's get started on our final chapter. Again, Making the Team a Guide for Managers, 6th edition, is we've been coming to you out of this reading. We have several others for the course, but this one here, I decided to spend a little time because I like how she laid out things for us. Leah L. Thompson. This is her 6th edition of this particular textbook, and the publishers are Pearson. So let's get started, guys, on our last chapter. Yay! So excited. Yes, yes, yes. So this is the final part of managing teams and organizations. And so we're going to talk about cultural and cross-cultural teamwork, challenges with cross-cultural teamwork, rather. So research from both academic and private institutions has revealed that ethnic diversity helps companies deliver superior business results. So, stereotypes versus prototypes. A stereotype is a generalized and usually faulty belief that everyone from a given culture is the same. They're not. We're all individuals. You could have 5 Black people in the room, and you may have 5 differences because we're all brought in differently in this world or in different places in the world. We're different, every one of us. You could have 5 white people in the room or Caucasian, and you're going to have 5 differences. 5 Indians, 5 differences. 5 Hispanic or people from. You could have people from all Mexico, but it depends on what part of Mexico. They're all going to be different and practice a different culture. So prototype is a general tendency within a given culture. And I think we stereotype and prototype a lot of people, and that's been our problem because mass media may be the cause of that, and how we see people on the news all the time or how we hear about them. We always maybe hearing the negative instead of the positive. We see just a few things. We don't see it all. And so defining culture. Now let's look at this. Culture is a unique character of a group, including the group's assumptions, values, beliefs, norms, ideologies, social structure, political structure, economic structure, as well as religious institutions. All of those things define culture. That's a lot, isn't it? So are my assumptions about one race, it could be totally wrong because every race, every person in that race could have different values, or there could be a multiplicity of values, beliefs, and norms, ideologies, and social structures, political structures, economic structures, and religious structures within what I perceive about that race. The iceberg model. Well, according to the iceberg model of culture, when we meet someone from a different culture, we don't see their values, beliefs, and assumptions. Rather, we see their behaviors and appearances, right? In order to understand their values, assumptions, and beliefs, it is necessary to take the time to understand that person beyond their surface characteristics. We must do that. So look at this, culture as an iceberg, behavior artifacts, an institution, values, beliefs, and norms, assumptions. All of those things matter. Hofstede's model, according to Hofstede's model, people from various cultures differ in 2 terms of key dimensions: individualism and collectivism, small versus large power distance. And as you can see, positions of countries on power distance and individualism on here. You can't see it here, but Hofstad's is the premier way a lot of people in academics and organizations look at various cultures and establish their beliefs and norms about those cultures. Individualism versus collectivism. Now, individualism refers to the extent to which people define themselves by their own traits and give priority to their personal goals. Collectivism focuses on how people define themselves in relations to others and how they seek to further group goals. Individual, relational, and collective selves. Broadly speaking, people's self-concepts consist of three representations: the individual self and how you differentiate yourself from others, the rational self and how you assimilate with others, how you gather with others, and what are you in that role as you gather with others. The collective self is your inclusion or exclusion with large social groups. There are two types of relational focus when it comes to teamwork. There's independent and interdependent. People who are independent have an outlook focus on the extent to which they are autonomous and unique. Independent people, what are you? Are you independent or interdependent? People with an interdependent outlook focus on the extent to which they are embedded within a large social network. So power distance in culture. People from low power distant cultures typically espouse egalitarian values and believe that status layers while they exist are permanent, meaning they can change. People from high power distance cultures typically hold hierarchical values and believe that status layers are not permanently permeable. Dignity, faith, and honor cultures. Another model culture is based on a tripartite model of three cultural prototypes: faith, dignity, and honor. Tripepity, I'm sorry. Faith culture orientation seeks to maintain group harmony and not insult others, build trust slowly over time, and signal information subtly, slowly, and indirectly. Dignity culture orientation will speak their mind and expect others to do so as well, make decisions on the basis of facts and information, ask pointed questions and willingly exchange information, have a tendency to trust others even without a long history. That's the dignity culture. Now, honor culture orientation express their ideas and often take matters into their own hands. Most emotionally explosive, may be perceived as overly argumentative or emotional. So dimensions of culture are here: faith, dignity, and honor. And depends on where we fall in this group as to how many people see the majority of us. And so this comes from negotiating globally and how to negotiate deals, resolve disputes, and make decisions. So remember, faith, primarily geographic location, East Asia, including China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Description, self-worth is socially converged. Team behaviors and expectation include faith-saving, faith-giving, desire to maintain group harmony. Dignity, we're going to find that in Europe, North America, Australia, and New Zealand. Self-worth is self-determined. That's because we all, in this particular 4 categories, are coming from the same European areas typically. Self-worth is self-determined. Direct information, open information sharing, rational, analytical, friendly exchange of information. And where we have honor is Middle East, South Asia, North Africa, and Latin America. And here we see self-worth as socially claimed, expression of emotions and confrontational. Tight versus loose cultures. Tight versus loose culture refers to the degree to which cultural situations control people's behavior. Loose cultures attributes wide variations in behavior that is considered normative or appropriate. Norms are flexible, less monitoring of behavior by team members. Tight cultures include small variations in behavior that is considered normative or appropriate. Inflexible norms, high monitoring of behavior by team members. And then there's the cultural intelligence is a person's ability to adapt effectively to new cultural contexts. As I talked to you earlier in an earlier chapter, we talked about making those changes based on the culture, the model, the people around, and making sure that you can adjust to that particular situation and respect the situations at hand. So cultural intelligence enhances the likelihood that teams on global assignments will actively engage in four key states of learning: experience, reflection, conceptualization, and experimentation. This is important. If you're going to work globally, you need to understand many of these particular factors. Four-factor model. A four-factor model of cultural intelligence includes metacognitive CQ focuses on planning and awareness. Cognitive CQ focuses on the general and the specific cultural knowledge. Motivational CQ reflects motivation to adjust to different cultures, whereas behavior CQ focuses on both verbal and nonverbal behavior. And exhibit 1315, assessing cultural differences, gives examples from 11 dimensions of the expanded CQ scale. Okay. CQ performance. Team and higher levels of CQ gradually exhibit higher rates of performance improvement over the life, guys, of a team. Now, CQ moderates the relationship between cultural diversity and team performance, such that the more diverse the team is, the more important CQ becomes for successful performance. And we have cultural metacognition. Cultural metacognition refers to an individual's level of conscious cultural awareness and executive processing during cross-cultural interactions. Managers and leaders high in cultural metacognition are more likely to develop trusting relationships with people from different cultures. Why? Because of their consciousness, of their conscious awareness of cultural awareness and executive processing during those cross-cultural interactions. Fusion teamwork principle of coexistence. The fusion principle of coexistence facilitates the ability of global teams to extract information and make decisions as compared to letting the dominant culture dictate the work ways of a team. So multicultural engagement and work ways. So multicultural engagement is the psychological mindset, openness to learning, adaptations made by people when they are in a multicultural environment. So work ways are a cultural signature pattern of workplace beliefs, mental models, and practices that embody a culture's idea about what is good, true, and efficient in the work domains. So creative innovation. Creative innovation starts with three dimensions of managers' global work experience that predict their organization's creative innovation: breadth, depth, and cultural distance. There are two factors that may be effective in moderating the potential negative impact of cultural diversity on team creativity, and that's information technology and task environment. So what about relationship orientation and networks? Well, self-managing multicultural teams do not rely on leaders and might even be leaderless. So teams with higher average levels of relationship orientation perform better than teams with low average level of relationship orientation. For team members with outside ties to cultural heterogeneous people, those network connections facilitated creatively and creative performance. So what about status perceptions? Remember I said about perceptions now. A person's own cultural values really influence whether one uses competence or warmth to attain status and judge the status of others. An individualistic cultural orientation influences people's tendencies to view high status people as competent as opposed to warmth. A collectivist, a collectivist cultural orientation influences people to view high status people as warm when they really may not be. Emotional display. Well, cultural value orientation affects norms regarding the emotional displays that are considered socially appropriate and how that person thus interprets the emotional displays of others. So there's some key challenges. There are in multicultural collaboration. There are 4 key challenges that multicultural collaborations can encounter, and they include adjustment processes are critical for coping with the absence of organizational embeddedness, being involved within the organization. Collaborations use internal and external strategies for adjustment. Cultural differences affect the ability to adjust, and over adjustment is detrimental to the process. Ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Ethnocentrism is the rigidly held belief that one's own culture or country is better than others. Come on now, centrism. I'm so focused on what we are and that we're better than the others. Cultural relativism is the principle that people should be understood by others in their own culture. And who's to say that they're in their culture? We don't know that they're in their culture. So managing multicultural teams includes change and adaptation. And so when teams contain members of different cultures, it's important to be proactive about how best to manage the team so as to prevent misunderstanding and conflict. No brainer, right? Yes. And so when members of different cultures interact, a mutual adaptation process takes place. And team members who are high in cognitive complexity, have knowledge of cultural norms, and have a shared cognition about the social diversity of their teams are better able to overcome the barriers of global teamwork. That's important. Transactive memory system and language barriers. Teams that have developed transactive memory, knowledge of who knows what of their team, are more effective than teams who are low in transactive memory. Because language barriers not only might hinder the transmission of knowledge, but also might erode the ability of team members to build trust. Leaders need to manage the team's negative reactions to language barriers to build cohesion. So cultural change, adaptation choices, according to the culturation framework, people have 4 choices when it comes to adapting to a multicultural context. Integration, group members maintain their own cultural identity and value, but also show a great receptivity to other cultural groups. Assimilation, when a person does not maintain their own culture, but rather assimilates to the other culture. Separation, when a person maintains their own culture and distances themselves from the other culture. And marginalization, when a team member neither maintains their own culture nor do they attempt to assimilate to the other culture. So that's it for our final chapter, chapter 13. So what did we learn about this over this presentation? And I really hope through all of these, you take a deep dive into the chapter by reading the chapter and then coming away with your own perceptions of things and looking at them. For me, through the PowerPoint presentations, I just covered the highlights and gave you some food for thought and to be in your ear, talking about them, discussing them, but I'm hoping you'll take a deep dive, and I'm hoping that you'll join me on the mini each week of our coffee and conversations. Some week we'll talk about 2 chapters, some we'll talk about 1 chapter, but all in all, we'll talk about what's happening with you, as well as what's happening from the text and how all of that interrelates. So in closing, for this chapter, multicultural teamwork is not simply learning a new culture and understanding language. To be successful in a multicultural team, One should learn to understand one's own cultural values and assumptions, understand the values of other team members, and devise a method by which to engage in effective teamwork and task work. And I totally agree there. And that's the same thing's going to happen in our class. A key threat to the effectiveness of multicultural teamwork is ethnocentrism, which is a rapidly held belief that one's own culture and values are more important than those of others. And in no way can we think that. Everybody's culture is important, and the things that they do and believe in are extremely important. All right? So that's it for managing project teams. The information we'll cover here in the videos that you'll have an opportunity to listen to each week, but also this will go along with our coffee and conversation meetings that we'll have and give us a chance to already be prepared to kind of discuss some of the things that were highlights and dive a little deeper into things as well as to how life is today and what's going on in your world. I want to know that when we're doing our coffee and conversations, and how does that relate to the text and what's happening, what's going on in your work world, and how we can relate that. And what project teams have you worked on that have been impacted, or if you were to work on a project team, for you to listen and understand what's involved there and devise some kind of plan to really build the best action plan or strategy to working in diverse multicultural project teams. That's it. Take care, and I'll see you in coffee and conversation.